folks who this meeting is being recorded.
Being recorded.
Yep.
Grab something real quick.
So I have to tell everybody I'm way behind. I've not done a whole lot. I think I'm ready to get back into it. I got a little bit disillusioned after the QHHT session that I feel like I have huge blockages that just won't let me pass and let me move forward and get into some, and I've been trying different things for years. So, but yesterday, at the event, I went into somebody who was doing the animal guides. I don't remember what her name is. Anyway, she was doing a meditation and helping us try and find our animal guides. And to facilitate it, she had us come up and pick an animal from a group of cards. So I picked an animal and it happened to be a fox.
That's mine.
I've had fox in the backyard. So I thought, okay, this is going to be an easy, imaging session. So I was going through the whole thing and I got in my backyard and I envisioned the fox and it came up to me. And once it came up to me, it changed to a white wolf.
Ooh.
That's interesting.
Wow.
And I went, oh my gosh.
Okay.
It was a baby step, I think, but it was a step.
That's really encouraging, Elaine.
Yeah. So a
That
white
is
wolf.
great.
A white wolf.
Oh. Well, I know in your job, you use a lot of left brain functioning.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that will prevent us from being very imaginative.
Yeah.
Right. We are having a QHHT chat Wednesday night.
Yeah. And I'm planning to join that. Yeah.
Perfect. So, and that's open to anybody who wants to know more about it, find out from people who've experienced it, what it's like, just talk about, I don't know, that whole realm. It's open to everybody who wants to participate. Here's Jody. So I would invite you to that too, but I'll definitely put all of you in the workshop Friday night. It's going to be a lot of fun. It'll be on Zoom and they're typically really interesting classes. So here is Jody. Let's start off. Who got through the Angels and Guides class? Yeah, she did.
Yay!
Holly, how about you, dear? Did you get through the Angels and Guides class?
I honestly don't remember.
That's okay.
Oh.
I know it all blends together. It all blends.
Yes.
Jody, how about you? Okay, we'll hear from Jody when she gets her audio on. So the Angels and Guides class is something I've been teaching for a while. And anybody have any questions about Angels and Guides?
I'm looking forward to going through it. It's not really a question.
Ashley, I see you going for your mute button. You have any questions about Angels and Guides?
I mean, I do have questions actually tonight, but they'll probably pop up as we kind of go through the discussion. But I actually do have some questions.
Let's hear them.
So my first one, which I don't even know if there's an answer to, but you were talking in the video about, we have at least 3 guides, correct? And then maybe
right. Mm-hmm.
So
Guardian Angel and Archangel.
Okay, so I mean, is there anything that determines in particular who gets how many? Like I have 3, I'm just throwing this out there, and my son has 7. Like, is there any way that that's determined, or any?
And that's an excellent question. We have all of us at least a guardian angel, and sometimes we have more than one guardian angel, and we have at least one archangel. Sometimes we have more than one, but no, I mean. We can also call in whoever we want to talk with. We have our loved ones who are with us. But no, I mean, truly, the sky is the limit. So it's sometimes when we need things, we'll have guides who come in to help us with that. Like if we're going through something and, you know, our guardian angel or archangel, whoever, or higher self even is saying, oh, yeah, that's the higher self too. We all have our higher self too. That's our first and foremost guide. But sometimes they will just say, hey, she needs a little extra something here. Let's go help her. You know, so we can have others just come in, go out, but no. And some people just need more help. Really, I don't think there's anything that determines it. And it might be a case by case. What other questions, or did that answer your question?
Yeah, that answered. And then these kind of will just, again, probably go along with the discussion, but just learning to listen to our guides better, tips and tricks, which I know are kind of addressed in the videos a little bit, being aware and mindful. And then sometimes, you know, what happens necessarily if we don't listen, like if we're getting nudged over and over about something, will they eventually quit nudging us? Or if it comes to a point where it doesn't matter anymore about that decision, I guess they probably wouldn't. But I guess I don't know.
Or instead of nudging, maybe they'll give you a slap in the head.
We want the 2x4s, don't we?
Sometimes, yeah, because
Sometimes.
otherwise it's like you start, it's like, is that real? Should I really be doing that?
Well, and sometimes they'll make the decision for you. They keep nudging me about changing jobs, quitting my job, changing jobs, and then I got laid off.
Mm.
So, you know,
That was a slap in the head. Yeah.
slap in the head. They're like, you should have gotten out. You should have gotten out.
Mhm.
And so again, it's kind of a case by case type of thing, but we all, I mean, everybody like doesn't trust their guidance that they're getting, right? You know, I hear people all the time. It's like, can I trust this? Can I trust this? I mean, how do I know? How do I know? It's like, I keep hearing this, but how do I, it's like, you've heard it 13 times. You know, we have no guarantees. We don't get a written engraved invitation. We, you know, we don't get the 2x4 upside the head. The best we can do is listen and trust. Right. So like I had a client who she was very, very attached to her mother, and we had a great reading. Her mother came through so clear. And then about a year later, her mother kept waking me up at 3 o'clock in the morning. This girl needs to take her vitamins. She needs to take vitamins. She's got to take like every night. And I was getting really tired of it. So finally I called her and I said, hey, listen, your mom wants you to take vitamins. What the hell is going on? And she said, oh, my husband and I were just talking about starting a family, and we're talking about going on prenatal vitamins. I was like, well, hallelujah. Now she can let me sleep. So well, and the thing is, in the reading, the mom came through and she kept telling me she was going to come back really soon and she was going to be back in the family again, but I didn't want to share that with the client. And sure enough, the mom came back and as the son of this client. And
Wow.
anyway, we can't make this stuff up, right? But you know, what's the worst that can happen if you trust that little intuition? If you trust that little nudge, what's the worst that can happen? So for that reason, I just encourage people, go for the low stakes stuff. You know, we can ask our guides, what should I have for lunch today? Who should I reach out today? I feel like I need to call a friend. Who should I call today? You know, just the really low stakes stuff. And
You know what
to learn to trust.
you know what I find is I'll feel like I should do something and I don't do it right away. And then it's like, you know, like 5 minutes later, it's like, oh, I should have paid more attention to that.
Mm-hmm. You know, I see that the trusting your intuition class is not on the list. It's in the Facebook group, but it's not on the list. So there's a little trick that I really like, and that is the 1, 2, 3 method. Once you get the hit, it might be a fluke. You get the same hit twice, it might be a coincidence. Although there are no flukes and there are no coincidences, and we should know this by now.
Mhm.
3 times, act on it.
That's the 2x4.
Yeah. But sometimes the 2x4 is just like a,
Or sometimes when you keep ignoring, you break your arm.
right?
Yep.
Your intuition keeps telling you, you need to ditch the guy. You need to ditch the guy. You need to ditch the guy. And then the guy ditches you. So, or you need to quit your job. You need to look for something else. You need to do something else. Then you get laid off. So sometimes that happens too. And yeah, to answer your question, Ashley, sometimes they do just go, we keep telling her, we keep telling her. And then, okay, we'll just let it sit for a while. But sometimes in QHHT sessions, people will, their higher selves will say, we have been telling you, we have been telling her, we have been telling them, and they're just not listening. And so finally it comes out in QHHT, and then you go, okay, well, yeah, I have been getting that intuition, and I just haven't been paying attention to it. It's like, well, you finally pay attention to it. You're paying all this money and spending all day with this lady. Are you finally going to listen? Yeah, we have free will, right?
Yeah.
We have free will, and they have to let us have that. We have to, but they love us so much that they're willing to let us make our own mistakes. It's that way with our kids too, right? Well, Ashley, your kid is little enough to where you can say, okay, listen, no, you need to do this right now. But when your kids get older, we can let them start to make their own mistakes. That's what love and logic is about. I love love and logic because I don't know if you've heard of this, but it's a way to raise your kids where you give them choices. They're all choices that you have vetted and you're okay with the choices. Like, are you going to wear your red coat or your blue coat? Either way, they're
But you're going to wear a coat.
Yeah.
And so our guides are the same way. They love us so much. They want to let us have our choices, but they love us enough to let us screw up too, because we learn through. That's how we learn, is through our screw ups, right? You learn from the test that you get back. That's marked a C-. And you're like, oh my God, why did I miss? What did I miss? And you go back and review it. You don't learn. It's like you might learn from getting an A+, but really you learn from your mistakes. And they love us enough to let us do that.
Mhm.
All right. Excellent questions, Ashley. What's your next one?
Well, where is my other one? I know I had one more. Not really. So I guess this kind of goes along with just talking about during virtue stuff. I know she had kind of just a whole change in her lifestyle. And so I was just kind of thinking, like, and I love her stuff too. But I guess as far as like why continue, I guess, to kind of follow some of the things she said since she did have a change. Did she denounce things that she had said before about her books that are now out of print, or did she just say, hey, okay, do what you will with this, and kind of move on with what she's doing or what her changes?
I'm hearing, because I don't follow her anymore after she had that change of heart. I just let the work stand on its own because it's really, really good. I'm hearing that
She radically denied it.
Yeah, which she wrote oracle cards, she wrote books and books and books.
Born again Christian.
Yeah, how do you deny all of that? I kind of got into it Friday night after my gallery with somebody who I just don't get it. I said, that sounds kind of like it's coming from a place of judgment. You might want to check that. I said, the work is the work, and take it. She's basically, her books are the guide to these beings.
Now, I heard that she's kind of moderating back into it a little bit, gone from one extreme to the other, and now kind of sliding. That's
the pendulum.
Yep.
Yeah.
Eventually ends up in the middle, right? So you guys do what you want. You do with it what you will. I continue to use her materials and talk about her materials and put them out because I feel like they are truth But you seek your own truth. I don't think any of us has any ownership of any truth except our own personal truth, right? So
Yeah.
do with it what you will. For me, that the book that I recommended is the final word on it until I find another final word on it.
Yeah, if you can't find the one you talked about, I've got this one, which is called The Essential Doreen Virtue Collection, and it has several books in it,
Nice.
including a whole section. I mean, it's got, I know, I got this at the half price bookstore a while back, but it's got everything from the archangels, as you said, but I mean, it's got a lot of everything in there, you know, death, depression, desire. It's got the healing messages is
How could you
is
write dozens
part-
of books and then say, no, it's all BS? How? I don't get it. But I mean, but that's not my journey. And I have no judgment against Doreen. She's doing, I just, I'm always like of the do you boo type of mindset. And I respect her journey. It's not mine, but that's okay. It doesn't have to be.
yeah, this has got
So-
communicated healing, healing with angels, as well as the archangels and ascended masters.
Right.
I have not read much of it yet, but I'm planning on opening up because it's like 500 pages. This thing is
Right,
huge.
right.
So
So it
it's
incorporates several books. All right. So speaking of archangels and ascended masters, our homework was to journal about who you'd like to work with on your spiritual team and communicate with them and develop your own method to talk with your spiritual team. So anybody want to share about who they would like to invite, who they've been working with, who they've been thinking of talking with?
I got a whole gang.
You got a posse.
Well,
do we choose them or do they choose us?
Well, guardian
I don't know
angel.
that.
Okay, that's an excellent question. Well, first of all, let's open it up. Who are y'all working with? And then I would love to circle back to that question.
I have my archangel and I go to him every day, especially because I lose things all the time. And he's real good at finding. And then because I have healing that I want done, I go to Raphael every day, especially at night, and just say, could you do something while I'm sleeping? And I appreciate it. But I leave it up to him because I don't understand. I don't know the answer to that question, Tyra. And I question it myself. And then I've always known Michael and loved him, and Christi has convinced me that he is just a great guy, so I call on him.
Oh, yeah.
And also,
To call
I really
Michael.
like Gabrielle because she's the beautiful angel that got to talk to Mary and announce the news, and I want her on my side if she wants to be. And then I go to Zadkiel and Raguel. And that's because my daughter told me I needed those two. Then I go to Haniel because she is just delightful. Her laughter lifts me up, and just thinking about her laughing and her beautiful clothes makes me feel good. And I also go to Ariel because she is in charge of all the animals. And so I talked to her one time and asked her for an orange tabby, and I got it exactly what I wanted. So I thank her all the time for my cat.
Who is that?
Ariel.
Ariel.
Mhm. Yeah, you travel with a posse.
Yeah.
I
You
do.
leave home without them, they're always around us. So yeah, what other guides, beings have you all been working with, and how have you been doing with that? Ashley, got anything you'd like to share? Kira?
Well, I've always worked with Michael. I actually got attuned to Michael a while back. I had an attunement with Joshua
Oh, yeah.
Ignacio.
Mm-hmm.
But also during one of his sessions, and this I find extremely humbling, is I have been told that Jesus is one of my archangels.
One of your guides, right? He's an ascended
Guides,
master.
yeah, whatever.
Wow, wonderful.
I've never, quote, called on him, but it's very humbling to know that he's there.
He was human. He's now an ascended master. I mean, he works with many. Yeah. And Jody, I know your video and your audio are off. I'm hoping you can hear us. So if you've got anyone that you're working with and would like to share how you work with them, let me please chime in. And then Elaine, you too.
I told you I haven't been doing anything.
Well, talking with our angels and connecting with our guides, I mean, like talking with our spiritual team, right? They're our spiritual support team. And we can do that, anytime. Pauline talks to them before she goes to sleep. I bring them in my car with me. I have these three guys. They work together. They call themselves the Angels of Peace, and they are what we call powers. They are because in the higher, they're just they've got a rank in the hierarchy of angels. There's like guardian angel. There's like loved ones and guides, and there's guardian angels and archangels, and then all of the different higher. Anyway, so this group of three, and I asked them to come in the car with me, just like be with me in the car, and they all sit in the back seat, and they're just so cute. They sit in a little row, and they're like, I'm going in the car, putting on my seatbelt. And it's so exotic to them, It's kind of like Ron Weasley's dad in Harry Potter, loving the Muggle stuff. They're like going in the car, rolling down the windows, and they're just. We can like bring them with us all the time. We can talk to them anytime. You're in the bathroom, you're like, "Hey, Raphael, how's it going? Please help me out today." So it doesn't have to be anything real structured. I know that we talked about the outline said to journal about him, and that's great, but if you didn't have time to, that's fine. But we can talk to them anytime. We don't have to like set up an altar. If you want to, that's great. If you want to have a formal prayer, if you want to pull out the Doreen Virtue book and use her invocations, that's great. But it can be so informal.
I don't even know which ones to choose or how to choose one.
You can't screw it up.
Are you kidding?
Seriously, you can't screw it up.
No, you can't.
If you don't know who to talk to, who to call in, ask Michael.
Michael's always there for everybody.
Yeah.
Okay.
He does it all. He's like the building super. Right. Terry, you had a question.
Where does a seraphim come in all this?
They are high up in I think that's the highest in the hierarchy. So there is like a hierarchy of angels. We really didn't dive into that.
I think they're the ones who I'm trying to think from my Judaism studies that they don't talk to humans.
Yeah, generally.
That they're only around God.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I know somebody that basically talks to her seraphim.
Ooh.
That's
cool.
wonderful.
She has a whole group of them.
Cool.
That's very cool.
Cool. I mean,
She's here in Kansas City too.
And who is that? Is that what is her name? She's over on Troost. But yeah, that's neither.
I can't remember her name. It's been a while.
Yeah, I don't doubt that at all. So I want to circle back to Tara's question about, do our guides choose us or do we choose them? Yes, the answer is yes. All of the above. All of the above, right? Because our guardian angels and our archangels who are, our assigned archangels, so we can contract with them. They can come and find us and say that they want to work with us, or we can have an agreement with them before we're even born. I mean, that's usually how it's done anyway. We have an agreement with them. But sometimes our guardian angels are ones who are those who have been with us in other lifetimes and they just want to help us. More often than not, they've only been, non-physical, but so it's often a mutual agreement. And so they are basically contracted with us to do.
Is
help.
there a way to find out the names? Because somebody had told me once that you basically, if you, right before you go to sleep, if you say, tell me the name of my guardian angel, and just repeat that before you go to sleep, that it'll appear in your dreams, although I never dream and it's not worked for me. So
It can be. The thing is, many times our angels and our guides, they don't necessarily have a name. They say, well, if you have to call us something, you can call us whatever, right? You can, if you have to have a name, then use this name. That might be a frequency that they resonate with, They don't always respond to what we would consider a name. So if you get a name, that's great. That's great. Now, I would say trust it. Sometimes people say, oh, well, I heard the name such and such, but I don't know. Well, I would say if you received a name, why not? Why not trust it?
My daughter started soul writing, and she's the one who told me the name of my archangel, but she asked if I should know it, and he said, no, not yet. She's not ready. So after a while, then I was told the name. And I had a nun ask me about my car angel, and she said, what's his name? I said, I don't know. How do I find out? She said, you just ask him. Well, I got into that whole thing, which is very human. Like, well, okay, so this name came to me, but is it right? I don't know if it's right. It could be right. I don't know. How do I check?
See?
So I just call him car angel.
I mean, and they really don't mind what we call them as long as we do. They don't, yeah, as long as we talk to them, they don't care how we address them or anything else. You can imagine your guides like sitting up in heaven, sitting on a cloud, watching Oprah, eating bonbons, and they're like, did your person call you today? No. Did your person call you today? No. What's going on? They're just standing by, they're waiting to hear from us, and they cannot interfere with us unless we ask. So we do have to ask, unless it's a case where you're about to step off a cliff and it's not your time. They can swoop in and help you. Or if you're in a horrible car wreck and it's not your time, they can swoop in and help you. We do hear stories about that all the time.
is it every day you need to ask them, or how
Well,
often?
they're going to be there. They're going to be there around you regardless. And they can like suggest things. They can whisper to you. They can kind of give you those intuitive nudges. They can, they can help in that way. But if you want their help, you do have to ask.
Every day.
Whenever you need
I
it.
don't necessarily do that with my archangel, but I'm with him all day long. So whatever I'm doing, if something is, if it pops into my head, I just say, thank you. I needed that little nudge or something. I talk to him all day long.
Yeah.
Especially because I lose things all the time and I keep asking him to find my glasses and find my keys and,
Samuel.
Yes, I was
Yeah.
just going to ask. Okay, you guys, hopefully if you've read the book or you looked at the videos, which archangel is that? Samuel.
Yep.
Okay, so this brings us to a good point. Pauline talked about the things popping into your head. So that was one of the videos to watch. If you did anybody see the Understanding Your Spiritual Gifts?
I was just starting that one, so no, I haven't.
Okay, I think it's a good one. It's actually, I think the Understanding Your Child's Spiritual Gifts is a little bit better. But yeah, so the four clairs, the ways
Oh,
that
that's
we, pardon?
that's in another part too. So yeah, I did the four
got
clairs.
that?
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, the four clairs. So how we might receive that guidance and that intuition. So what Pauline's talking about, the claircognizance, we have just an idea fully formed drop into your head. Just a knowing, you know? And that's how oh shit, I'm just about out of battery. Let me finish this thought and I will get my cord. So that's how I grew up. I just knew stuff. I didn't know how I knew it, but I just knew things. My parents would ask me, like, they would ask me stuff, and I'd say, oh, why are you asking me? I'm just a kid. And they're like, well, you just seem to know things.
That's
It almost
one of
sounds
my
like a
gifts.
burden.
Well, it can be.
Mm-hmm.
I have some very dear friends. Their daughter is my daughter's best friend. And I knew they were splitting up before they ever announced anything. And it was really awkward. It was
Sure.
apart. You know, I just know these kind of things. But then there's also clairvoyant, which we all hear about. This is where we take in our intuition through visual means. So it doesn't have to be you see visions, but it means that you know, like you've been thinking about something, you've been pondering something, you've been asking for an answer, you've been asking for advice from your spiritual team, and then you see the answer. It can be like maybe you passed by a billboard 10 million times, but then one day it's like, oh, it's something different. And now it's, wow, that's exactly what I needed to know. Okay, I do have a good story about that. Going through a breakup, you know, my marriage, and I was like, it was a really dark time. And I was driving to my therapist office and driving and crying. I was listening to a whole bunch of Abraham Hicks, this for some spiritual support and spiritual guidance. And so I was driving and crying, oh, Abraham, please let me know everything's going to be okay. I just need a sign. I need a sign. And this panel van pulled in front of me on the highway. And in the back of it, it said, Abraham, the people you know, the name you trust.
Oh, wow.
You cannot make this up.
Oh.
So this was a visual thing for me, right? That was my visual cue. So like clairvoyance is either we see a vision in our head or we see a visual indication. I will be right back. I got to get my cord. Sorry. My dog. So then there's it was right next to me the whole time. And then there's clairaudience, where that is hearing. We can either hear something in our head, and sometimes, have any of you heard like somebody call your name in your head or around you? You heard something?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. It's more common than you think. But it's also, you take in your intuition through auditory means. So maybe you're thinking of somebody and you turn on the radio and it's their favorite song. Sometimes you can be, you know, having a question for your guides, needing an answer, needing some support. And then you turn on the radio and somebody's talking about the very thing that you need to have or you needed to hear, right? So it's intuition through auditory means. And then there's, the fourth one is clairsentience, which is basically a physical sense. It can be, you know, you get the little truth bumps when something is true. You get the prickly, goosebumpy feeling. It could be a feeling in your stomach, a gut feeling. We have words for this, a gut feeling. It could be smelling, like when my grandma Ruth is around, I smell lilacs. It could be you feel something brushing on you or touching you. That could, you know, anything that's physical is clairsentience. All right. So these are ways that our guides can use to get through to us. Any questions about that? Yes, Ashley.
Okay, so these modalities of intuition, I mean, it might depend on the person, but I guess do our guides maybe find a type of one of, these four clairs that maybe we respond best to? Or could somebody, depending on the day and the situation, I mean, get all four? Some people say, oh, I'm only clairvoyant, which I know is a word that's misused quite a bit. Or can our guides use all four?
This is an excellent question, Ashley, an excellent question. We can have them all four, right? But we may have one that's like more than the others, so we can have them in varying degrees, right? Remember I said when I was growing up, I was mostly claircognizant. I just knew things and I didn't know how. But I remember the day that my clairsentience kicked in, because I was doing readings at my house at the time, and I had done this reading with this really nice gentleman. He came back with and brought his family for another reading. And before they came, I was like, oh my God, they are going to rape me. They are going to kill me. Just felt danger. I felt in danger. I almost canceled. And I'm so glad I didn't. They came and they were perfectly lovely. But they were sitting in my living room, and I just said, I have to tell you, I had this feeling, this physical feeling. Tell me, has there been any sexual abuse in the family? Has there been any physical abuse in the family? And the father said, absolutely, that was my dad. And I came into this life, and I decided I was going to put an end to that, the whole pattern. So I was like, okay, well, there that is. I felt it. Ever since then, I feel people's maladies in my body. I feel their energy in my body. And then, the other clairs can just come in as, yes. So to answer your question, we can have them all. You might have one that's predominant and one that's secondary, tertiary, and then the last one. So when I used to teach college, I would give a learning assessment, a learning style assessment. How do you learn best? And the people who were in my remedial writing class, because they couldn't test into college 101 writing, they were predominantly kinesthetic learners. They had to do things by moving things around, and that's not how people teach. So anyway, they would take this learning styles assessment. They could be in this particular assessment was visual, auditory, or kinesthetic learners. And we would graph it out, and they'd have, see where they were with that. We all have predominant style, and then others that are lesser. Does that even make sense? Okay, so yeah, we can have them all. But here's this. Look how I'm talking with my hands, right? Kind of how I am, who I be. So we can have guides that are more sense oriented, and they send you sense type of information. We have guides that are more visual, and they send you more visual stuff, auditory as well, and cognitive. So it's us, how we receive, but it's also how our guides might want to reach us. So if that makes sense at all. So I did mention Abraham Hicks. Do y'all know Abraham Hicks? Love
Yeah.
them.
I heard the name.
You heard the name? Okay, so
I've
just
heard the name.
real quickly, Abraham is actually a group of angels who speak with one voice, and they are channeled by a woman named Esther Hicks. And because when we do channel, we tend to get, so she explains it where she gets these blocks of thought, so claircognitive, right? So there are blocks of information, blocks of thought that she puts into her own language. Oh, Jody says, love them. Absolutely, they're awesome. So
she can hear us.
Yes, she
Yes.
can hear. Yes. Good.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, finally. Okay, so I'm in a different spot in my house now. I could connect and I could hear, but every time I tried to talk, I guess you couldn't hear me. Okay, so I'm going to interrupt and ask one question.
Please.
So I get stuck, and this is where I'm stuck in everywhere you're talking. I get stuck in like the validation piece, because I know we're supposed to believe, and I believe, and I know I feel, and so I believe, but I cannot validate it somehow. And when you say, like start with the little things, or I can do that, but I think I am so analytical, or that's just how my mind works. So then I can try to meditate and turn it off, but then I'm still thinking. And so like, it's so hard to get to like, how do I validate so I don't feel like I'm just crazy sometimes? And I hope that sounds respectful. And I'm not saying that, but I feel crazy sometimes because I know things and I do things and I can make things happen, but then I just have this like
Ooh.
validation. I just can't validate it. And then I second guess it and I go into a turmoil of thinking, which I don't even want to go to. So Christi, and I listened to most of those videos and links. And I guess at one spot you said like, all you have to do is just ask me. And that's how, like you don't, and you made a comment of it that you never, interject into somebody's life. So I guess I need to ask you to interject to give me some validation so I can continue down the right path, I guess, because I guess you're the only one that I would know who to ask that question to.
So talk to me about what validation means to you, Jody.
I was going to ask the same thing.
Well, like that what I'm feeling or what I'm believing or what I'm hearing, when I believe I'm meditating or when I believe I'm talking to my guides or when I believe I'm getting the messages. How do I know, I guess, where that's coming from? Or, I mean, I know where it's coming from, but how do I validate that that's really where it's coming from? And I guess I'm coming because those questions come up because I come from a Catholic based faith and, I have children and I've raised them a certain way this whole time. And here, and yeah, I guess that's just where, and then I start to, and I know you need to be strong in that and that's your faith, but that's the validation piece, I guess. And I'm totally rambling. I do that a lot. Sorry.
Okay, that's okay. Oh, there's so much there. Okay. So first of all, I talked about the 1, 2, 3 method. Once is a coincidence, twice a fluke, and then third time do it. So there's trusting that. The second thing I like to talk to people about is that, we all want to know, is this true? Where is it coming from? And my answer is always, if it's helpful, if it answers your question, if it's uplifting and positive, doesn't matter. And I don't want to downplay the urgency of the question at all. But sometimes we just have to ask ourselves, if this answer is helping me, doesn't matter where it comes from. So I also like to tell people that I can't trust for you. Nobody can trust for you. That's why I like to start with the small stake stuff. The intuition and our connection with our guides is like a muscle. And the more we connect, the more we receive, the more we give thanks for the information we receive, it just builds that muscle. And I don't know if that answers your question at all, Jody, but it is a trust thing. You might read the book E Squared, E2 by Pam Graff. You've read it, Tara?
That's a good one. Yeah.
It's a good
We
one.
did a book study on it.
Yeah, it's a great one to do in a book study.
Yeah, and she came and spoke too.
Oh my
Oh, wow.
gosh. She was on
Yeah.
my podcast. I had her as a guest. She's lovely. She's very approachable.
She is. In fact, right after she spoke with us, she lost her, I think it was her daughter.
Her daughter.
Yeah.
Suddenly. Yeah. So this book has some experiments in it that prove that our thoughts create energy, and our energy, our thoughts create our reality. So that book might be helpful for you, Jody, if you're having trouble seeking that validation, because the validation doesn't always come in like we seek external validation all the time in terms of like maybe a performance review, or we I don't know, receive physical signs. If we receive physical signs, that's wonderful from our guides, but we're probably not going to receive a physical sign and a physical validation. That does usually tend to come from within us. But I think the experiments in that book might help to get that validation for you, if that makes any sense at all. So I wish I had more solid answers for you, Jody, but hopefully that gives you some ideas for how to trust a little better.
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, good. You know, okay. So from the E Squared book, I made a couple of divining rods, the dowsing rods that she talks about. I showed Pauline. It's amazing. I
Yes.
wish I had them here, but I don't. I have them. I took them to the office today. I'm going to have to create another set here. But she talks about creating these dowsing rods with coat hangers, and you bend them to 90-degree angles, and you put the handles in drinking straws so that they can swivel around, right? And then holding them and directing your thoughts and watching them move. It's quite amazing, and that does give you fairly instant gratification, instant proof in a way of where your thoughts are, at least. I think perhaps you could even use them to connect with your guides if you wanted to. So that might provide some physical evidence if that's what you're seeking. You know, another thing that that can provide some physical evidence is an app called Randonaut. It's pretty cool. I talked to Pam Grout about it on my podcast. It's an app. You set an intention and then you put in your coordinates, and the app gives you other coordinates. And you go to these coordinates and you should be able to find whatever you'd been intending. It's very interesting. I did it with my daughter one day, and my intention was to find community, to find community and help people. So we were driving to the coordinates. We were almost there. We were driving down this street, and I said, "Hey, I think this guy I went to high school with and his wife live on this street." And then we saw some dogs running loose. And my daughter said, "We have to help these dogs." And I said, "Okay, yeah, let's go help the dogs." So we pulled over, we stopped, we pulled over about a block away. And when the dogs saw us, they ran up to this guy's house. And he had sold me some crystals, so fairly recently to that time. So I remembered which one was his house. And the dogs went up there. And so I thought, well, maybe they belong here, because I knew he had big dogs. I texted him, and he texted back. He said, "Hey, those are my dogs. I'll be right there to let them in." They got out somehow. And so to me, that proved right away that when I set the intention to find community and to help people, like here, I was guided to this place where I could help somebody that I knew. And that's what community is about, is helping each other, right? So to me, that was almost instant gratification. Now, you do have to be a little careful when you're going to random places, but this was a place that I trusted. So anyway, that might be another more instant type of validation if that's what you're looking for. But just gotta trust. Gotta trust. Excellent questions, y'all. What
I have a
else?
random question.
Please.
Where'd you go to high school?
Shawnee Mission South.
Ah,
That was
I went to
random.
West.
Oh my God. What year
I
did
was
you
supposed to go to South, but all my friends, my house was right next to the border.
Yeah.
And it's like, all my friends were going to West. So I petitioned not to go to South.
Oh my gosh. Okay, cool. What year were you?
I'm old, 80.
I'm 82. Not that old. Okay, so we talked about our spiritual team and guides. Remember, you can call in any guide that you want. They're around us. They're waiting for us to call them. Oh, you know what? One more thing before we kind of get off the topic of angels and guides. People think that, you know, it's like maybe with Jesus. Okay, with Tira's example of Jesus, it's like, wow, I feel so honored and so humbled by this. Know that they can be present with everybody who calls them at the same time, right? We're not drawing their attention away by asking for their help. Think about all of the people who talk to Mother Mary every day, every hour of every day. She can be with everybody at once. How many people pray to Jesus every hour of every day? He can be with
That's true.
everyone at once. With Siddhartha Gautama, the Buddha, with Ganesh, with Krishna, with any of these beings, they can be with everybody at the same time. The woman who woke me up every night to tell her daughter to take vitamins, she said, in the reading, she said, this is great. I can be with all of my family at the same time. She had family in Mexico, in Seattle, in Kansas City, in Washington, D.C. She said, I could be with everybody at the same time.
Cool.
I've heard from people who tell me that, oh, I don't want to like bother my loved ones. They're doing what they need to do on the other side. I don't want to talk to them, even though it doesn't matter how lonely I don't want to talk to them because I don't want to take them away from it. No, you're not. You're not taking them away. Okay, they can help everybody at the same time. All right. We talked about spiritual gifts. We talked about the clairs. We talked about how we can receive these things, how we're all energetic beings having a human experience. Any questions about that? About our spiritual gifts. We're all born with them.
What about numbers?
Oh gosh, that's a great question. They all have meaning. With numbers, I would suggest finding a resource to look them up that you like, because there can be conflicting information. Doreen Virtue has the book Angel Numbers. It's wonderful. There used to be an app, but when she denounced everything, the app went offline.
Of course it did.
Maybe it'll come back. I like Joanne Scribe on, I think she's got a WordPress site. What is that? Let me see. Because there are people out there who do angel numbers, but they can be conflicting. I like to find just one or two sources. And Joanne Walmsley, Angel Numbers. It's pretty complete. That's a good one. So our guides are wanting to communicate with us. They want to get us messages. They want to let us know things. And one of the ways that they can do that is through numbers. One of the ways they can do that is through colors, through the physical, through the clairs. They can do it through the clairs. But the numbers is one of the ways that they can do that. And y'all been noticing repeating numbers?
Yes.
I always do. Numbers are, I'm a counter, so I think I always assumed that was my OCD, that I'm a counter.
Yeah, I do some of that too.
Right?
It's their way of getting through to you on your own level.
Well, they've been trying awfully hard and I haven't been listening.
Well, here's the deal. All the repeating numbers, especially if it's like people will see 111, 222, 333, 444, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Sometimes people see their birthdays repeated. Sometimes they see a loved one's birthdays repeated, or a loved one's death day repeated. So numbers are a significant way to communicate with us because they're everywhere. There's time, of course. There's, my friend Desiree first turned me on to the whole idea of 1111, like I don't know, 20 years ago. And she said it had been getting ridiculous. Jody says, I have number patterns over and over, but not sure meaning it. Okay. All right. We'll get to that. So Desiree had been, it's like she was seeing 1111 everywhere, and she was pumping gas. She's one day, and she said, "Oh, I'll bet 1111 comes up for the price." It didn't, and she was like, "Oh, well, that's too bad." But then when it came up to the number of gallons,
It was
1111.
11. There's a whole study in Judaism called Gemara.
Ooh,
Gemara.
not
It
Kabbalah?
is no, not Kabbalah. No. This is different. This is each Hebrew letter has a value,
Mm-hmm.
and the sum of those numbers is significant. Like the word chai, meaning life, is, I believe, 18. And there's a whole, a lot of people study it.
Numerology, there is. I've
Yeah,
heard of that too.
it's not numerology. It's called Gemara. I think it's Gemara. I can look it up.
I am receiving a message now. I'm not sure who from, but it doesn't really matter. That the numbers that show up would be ones that are significant to you, to each individual person. So if like these the numbers that you're talking about, Elaine, are important, are significant to you, that's probably what will show up for you. If Tyra mentioned, I'm so sorry. Mentioned numerology. So if numerology is important to you, you'd probably see those numbers cropping up quite a bit. Repeating numbers are significant to other people. Birth dates, death dates, addresses. I mean, any kind of numbers that are important to you, though, that is a good way for guides to connect with you, because you're already, those numbers have meaning for you. So to me, it's repeating numbers, because that's what has meaning to me. Other people I've heard from it's like I work with so many people. A lot of folks who have lost someone will see their birth dates come up, their death date come up. So it can be individual to each of us.
I misspoke. It's Gemara is part of the Talmud. It's Gematria. Gematria, and it's the association, and each Hebrew letter has a number associated with it.
Yeah. See? Yeah, I think that could be really significant to you. If that's something that you follow and you're looking into it, then that could be what comes up for you. Pam Grout's book, E2, talks about one of the experiments is the Jetta principle. So basically, you buy a new car, and then pretty soon then you see everybody's got that car. It's like things that you're clued into that are in your mind, you start to see them everywhere. So it's like if you're into the Gematria numbers, then you probably see those everywhere. And so this makes a lot of sense. I'm glad I received that message. If numerology means something to you, then yeah. Right. So it kind of cues into what even channeling, Esther Hicks. She calls her messages Abraham Hicks, because she's the one translating them. They're using her database, her words, to give their messages. Someone else channeling them might have different terminology, different words. We find this in QHHT as well. So our higher self is probably not going to, I guess it could happen to speak another language, but usually they use the client's database of words.
Oh.
Does it make sense?
Yeah.
Sure.
She uses what they know. So for that reason, my class, Trusting Your Gut, I talk about taking in as much information as you can. Read. Watch the YouTube videos. Learn. Fill this receptacle full of information that your intuition can use. And then your guides can then just kind of look through your little database here. How do I communicate this best to this person? Using words they know, phrases they know, terminology they know. So filling that full of useful stuff can really help. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Mhm.
All right. The podcast episode that's coming out tomorrow, July 13, is Melanie Barnum. She wrote a book, Intuition at Work. And yeah, she basically reinforces that as well, intuition at work. And we talk about how Steve Jobs, Warren Buffett, Bill Gates all credit their success to intuition, because they're tapping into this greater source of knowledge.
Oh.
Okay. Any questions, etc.? Questions, comments? All right. Let's talk about our other topic, which was, let me see here, past and future lives. Okay. We've got a lot to go over. Okay. Past and future life. Any questions? Yes, Ashley, you've got a question.
I do. I wanted to ask this when I attended that the class where we did a little regression. But okay, I know you said everyone has multiple lives. Is there ever a first life? What is the first life? I guess, what about a first life? How does that start?
Sure. How does it start? It can
Well, yeah,
start.
or yeah, I guess I know you had mentioned like all the lives are kind of about the same age. I think is
Oh,
what
the
you had.
souls are. Yeah, all of the souls
Yeah,
are.
the
Yeah.
soul. Yeah, so I guess, and you said so everyone has had multiple. I mean, but there has to be a start. So is there ever like on Earth a first? Does that make sense?
Yeah. And you would be surprised how many people want to know about their first incarnation in their sessions, in their individual sessions. It's wild. But yeah, all souls are roughly the same age because they were all made at the same time. When we talk about someone being an old soul, that refers specifically to someone who's not had a lot of physical lifetimes on this planet. They're not familiar with the Earth game. Or no, someone who's an old soul, they've had a lot of life specifically on this planet. They've had a Earth experience, a lot of Earth experience. Someone who's a newer soul, they maybe haven't been here all that often, but they've spent all their time off of this planet, between dimensions, just not physically focused on this planet. Does that make sense? I feel like I'm out of body right now. Okay, so sometimes I think our earliest lifetimes sometimes can be non-human and even non-biological. I've seen people experience lifetimes as boulders, as trees, as water, and even a cloud. That one's on YouTube. It's really fun. So we can have experience with the energy on Earth, with just being present here in the density of Earth, because our planet is so much denser than many other places. Just have that experience here without accruing much karma, without just kind of a looky-loo type of thing, right? So that might be some of our earliest lifetimes to kind of get used to the place and then start our evolution from there. I've also seen lifetimes as sea creatures. One was Ashley, were you in the group where somebody was a rat? I think so. Yeah, I think you were in that group. That they had a lifetime as a rat. But we can, I've seen other creatures too, they're not coming to mind, but we can work our way up the evolutionary scale as well. You know, it's very interesting. Sometimes we're just energy in other places. But here on Earth, you know, the more experience we have here on Earth, Earth is like a laboratory. You know, if you take a biology class, you know, you have to do the classroom portion of it, and then you have to do the lab portion of it. So on Earth, it's the same. This Earth is like the lab portion. This is the hands-on experiment. You can see what all of these spiritual laws, all these spiritual principles really look like when you slow it down. So I actually know someone who is a rocket scientist. You know, we say it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure this out. I know a rocket scientist. He's retired, worked for the French government on the French space program. His job was to reduce the friction and the wind turbulence on the rocket as it took off so it didn't shake apart on reentry or launching, right? So studying wind turbulence and wind movement. His PhD is in fluid mechanics. You think, well, why fluid if you're going to be studying wind? Because the principles are...
Wind is a fluid.
Pardon?
It's called computational fluid dynamics. Yeah,
There you
we
go.
do modeling for that now. We have computer programs who model
Well,
it.
this is back in the, you know, the right, exactly.
Yeah.
But right, so we study the fluid dynamics to know what wind does because it's the same principles.
Yep.
But it's slowed way down. You can observe it. You can measure it. You can test it. You know, you can just observe it a lot better. So it's kind of similar that the spiritual principles are all the same. You know, law of attraction, etc. But it's slowed way down on Earth, so we can really learn from it and we can really study it. Does that even make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So here on Earth, well, elsewhere, communication for the most part is telepathic. It's instantaneous. Manifestation is instantaneous. You just think it and it happens. Here on Earth, communication is really clunky. We have different experiences, which give us different language, which gives us different expressions, which gives us these filters that we understand things with, which gives us biases. It's really clunky. And we have to try really hard to understand and get our points across to other people. It's not the instantaneous, I know what you're thinking, I know how you're feeling type of thing. The manifestation is like really clunky and we've got to really work at it sometimes until we get our energy right and it's starting to flow really well. So the principles are the same, but they're just slowed way, way down so we can really dig up our, you know, roll up our sleeves and dig in and learn things. So it's a school and it's treated like that. You hear channelings from other planets and beings from other places and they're like, oh yeah, the Earth School. That's what it's there for, so that we can learn, so that we can learn, we can advance, we can grow, we can develop, we can just be more fuller beings. So this, I can't remember who I was working with, but the analogy was given to me of a course catalog. And y'all remember going to college and you get the big course catalog and it tells you like, if you're this is your major, these are the classes you need. And then
Oh my God.
course, right? Here's the course and here's the description of what it's going to cover and everything. So they gave me the analogy of a course catalog. So, well, you need to learn biology. Everybody has to take biology, right? To, you know, get to whatever major you have, you got to have biology. So maybe you need to have a lifetime where you are dealing with a huge medical issue or a family member is dealing with a huge medical issue so that you can learn these things. All right, okay, then you learn that and then you're done. Okay, we got to take economics, right? Got to take economics so you can be a, you know, like a, get your whole major, your whole program of study. Take economics. Well, so we got to learn poverty. We got to learn being rich. We've got to learn, struggling for every scrap we get. So then we learn economics. We learn religion. Okay, so we have to take a religion class. So we have to, being extremely faithful, having no faith, being tied to your church, not being, we have to learn that. So all of the different things that we're going through are basically boxes we're taking off to be more well-rounded souls, to be more complete. Questions, thoughts, comments? Okay. So the way that I picture it in my mind is that here's God has made this creation and wants to know more about itself, wants to know more what this creation is and what it can do. So God's splitting itself into source, splitting itself into billions and billions of pieces, which become stars, which become dust, which become trees and rocks and boulders and planets and souls, all the things. And then all these little pieces, this is just the way I imagine it, all these little pieces going out into the universe to go learn. Everything's going to go pick up information and feed it back, just so God can understand what it's all about and what it can do, right? So that every lifetime that we have, every learning experience we have is just feeding into this greater consciousness and this greater understanding. Does that make sense?
Yes.
You look puzzled or something, Pauline.
Because I'm thinking about conversations I've had in just the last 2 days and bringing that all back up into my mind and saying, oh yeah, okay, so we discussed that, or I, heard that and it stuck in my brain. So now it's like I'm going back over it.
Interesting.
And
okay.
it just makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right. So, Ashley, I know you've done some past life work. Pauline, you've done some past life work. Elaine, you had tried to do that. We're going to keep working on it. Okay. Kira, Jody, have you done any past life inquiry, past life work?
No,
Can you make it Friday?
what time is it?
7, I think.
7, I think, yeah.
Uh-huh. I surely hope you can. It's very interesting. Jody, how about you, darling?
I don't know if you remember, I did a session with you a long time ago.
Oh my
Mhm.
God, that's a long time ago. That's
And
embarrassing.
that's okay. I think I was a rock, and I think I was, and I think I was a piece of grass, and yeah, and I was some other things too. And that's that validation piece that I'm like, oh my gosh, is that really, like, yes, yeah. So, but I had a
Okay.
session. Yes. And so I believe that, and I remember that, and I can go back. I think I even have that session in my email. I could go back and listen to, from the original version or the one you sent me. But yeah, so like, yeah, I've had some. So I guess my question with all of that is like, it talked about, your children kind of get to pick their parents, which I thought was really interesting. And I think Ashley maybe mentioned like who was first. And I thought the piece on, oh gosh, who did you talk to? Dolores Cannon's piece about the and I'm going to get the words wrong, the first wave, second wave, third wave, or whatever. It kind of that's just made sense to me how she explained it in that piece. I can't explain it to somebody else, but I thought that was a good little piece. And I just wonder where I am in that cycle as well.
Oh, interesting. Interesting. All right, so you're talking about where you are with the 3 waves?
Kind of, yeah.
Kind of,
And I guess I kind of thought that the waves almost kind of go together with past lives or future lives or that whole piece. I feel like they go hand in hand a little bit, I guess, but maybe they don't.
Okay, that's an excellent question, Jody. It really is. So, okay, you had questions about validation. And I had mentioned something that validated your session. So you see, this validation
Oh,
that I'm looking for can come
yeah.
from all kinds of different, we just have to keep our minds and our ears and our eyes open for that validation. And I love that instant gratification that you were wanting validation, and then I didn't know it, but supplied that validation.
Huh, yeah, you did. Thank you. I got my ask. Number 2, because I asked you to help me. Thanks. I guess number 3 will be a rock on the head or something. I'll tell you later.
So part of all of this is us going through different changes and accepting changes. And I mean, right now I'm going through a change that I really, really, really don't like. It's a change in my life entirely, and it's just not making me happy.
Interesting. Have you ever heard the expression, what we resist persists?
Oh, yes. And I usually go just the opposite. And I will go into things just because I don't want to do them. This is a little different, and I might talk to you about it later.
Okay, yeah. Well, this is a really, I'm glad you brought that up. This is a good point. So with all of the lessons that we decide that we want to tackle in whichever life we're talking about, let's just say this life, we decide our parents, we decide our major challenges. We don't decide like what we're going to have for lunch every day before we come, but we decide the big things, right? And these big things are like the classes in the college catalog I was talking about, and they're basically pass fail. So we can either move through these things with grace, with integrity, with forgiveness where appropriate, and incorporate the lessons and integrate the lessons, learn from our lessons, and then we get to graduate. Or we can get angry, we can get resistant, we can lay blame, we can move through them without grace, without integrity. And then there's no judgment about it. We just need to take the class again. And it could be harder next time. So learning throughout the process to remain positive, to look for the best in the situation. That doesn't mean to like slap a coat of paint over it and pretend it's not there, but just to see the positives, to see the blessings in every situation is helpful. I have a phrase that I love, which is everything works out in the end. If it doesn't, then it's not the end.
That's
Right?
My
great.
phrase is, if it doesn't kill you, it makes you stronger.
Exactly. What doesn't kill us makes us stronger.
Yeah.
So we can go through unpleasant experiences, but if we see it as a learning opportunity, if we see it as an opportunity to become stronger, to look for the blessings, to look for the lessons, then we're going to be much better off. And there can be blessings in everything. If you're not seeing what the blessing is, then maybe you need to get past it to get a little bit more perspective on it.
True.
You know, a neighbor, people who live on the corner, had a daughter, and she had epilepsy really pretty bad. She got to college age and wanted to have the experience of going away to college, but they were afraid to let her go away to college because they were afraid that she could have an episode and it could be really bad. But they kind of split the difference and said, okay, why don't you go to UMKC and live in the dorms? You have the college experience living away from home, but you're still just like right down the street, because it's literally just maybe a 15-minute walk, 5-minute drive. So she did, and yeah, she did pass away. She had an epileptic seizure and passed away. So at her funeral, Reverend Cleaver, who's our congressman, he was speaking at the funeral, and he told a story from the Bible about somebody who ran into a situation. He got the crap beat out of him by some muggers and demanded of God to know the blessing in the situation. He said, God, you tell me there's a blessing in everything. What is the blessing? And so he told that story. And then afterward, the brother, I was telling his brother, telling him I felt so sorry. I was so sorry that Teresa had died. And I loved Reverend Cleaver's message. And he said, yeah, I took that to heart. He says, if the blessing that's coming to me right now, and there may be more, but he says, now we don't have to wonder if we're going to get a call in the middle of the night. Now we can breathe easier knowing that she's okay. So even if that's, hello, Becky. So even if that is the blessing, even if the blessing is still not that great, but just know that there's going to be more. Just if we open our eyes to it. All right, how are you, Becky?
I'm good. I'm good.
Good, wonderful, wonderful.
Aaron, and grab an orange soda. God, I've had a hankering for an orange soda all day.
I haven't had an orange soda in a long time.
Oh, on vacation, I got a, grape crush. I used to drink them as kids. And it's my absolute favorite, grape crush. And I'm actually drinking the remnants of it right now. And it's like,
Okay. That sounds good. Now I want one. So yeah, we were just talking about the past lives, future lives, different lifetimes. We talked about angels and guides. We talked about spiritual gifts and the different clairs that we can have and that we express in our lives. Had some excellent questions about that. And now we're talking about the past and future lives aspect of it. And I think I originally said when I created this class, it's like, hey, maybe we can even do a past life regression session. But I'm kind of thinking we've got so much to talk about. We're not going to have time to do it tonight. But I'm thinking that Friday night, I'm going to just like invite y'all to come in. I'm doing a workshop. We're going to visit one past life and one future life. And I would like to just add y'all to the class if you can make it. So I will just be adding y'all to the class. I hope you can make it. If you can, great. If you can't, don't worry about it. But it's 7 o'clock Friday night. It's a fun workshop. We do like a little presentation about past. It's basically what you guys saw already. So if you want to join in late, that's okay. And then we do one past life. But since it's a group and not one-on-one, I can ask questions like, tell me about where you are. Tell me about who's with you. Tell me about where you live. Tell me about what you do for a living. Tell me about this, that, and the other. We can't do that in a group. So I just guide you through it. We're going to go to several important days. Hi, Mom. We go through several important days and we go through the end of life when that's appropriate. And then
they can see you.
What's that?
Oh, she didn't know. She hasn't done Zoom meetings.
Oh.
See if they can see you right there.
Yeah, we can see you.
I knew that was going to happen. No.
Oh, that's okay. Hi, Mom.
They're saying hello.
Oh, hello to you.
Thanks for letting us borrow Elaine.
They said thanks for letting them borrow me.
Oh, okay. You're welcome.
You're free to talk about what we want, what we're talking about.
At some point, maybe. Yeah.
At some point, maybe.
Yep.
So anyway, and then so I give you a little bit of time after that experience to journal about it, to write down everything you remember before you forget. And then brave souls, whoever wants to share can share. And then we go to a future lifetime, and it's a potential future lifetime because we're still working on karma, which I do want to talk about. Okay, we're still working on karma. We're still working on things we want to learn. And so we go to a potential future lifetime, 100, 200, or 300 years in the future.
Ooh.
And then I know it's fun. And then I give you some time to journal about it so you remember it, or before you forget it. And then we'll talk about it. We share, whoever wants to share. It's really kind of fun.
So do you hypnotize the whole group?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Mhm.
In the before times, I would do these, like I would like have a meeting space and we'd all get together and lay out on the floor. But now we're doing it on Zoom. It works just as well. And that way you can get comfortable.
And I
with,
actually attended one. I
Yeah.
attended one, and it was very cool. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, it was very effective. I didn't think I would. I'm like, oh, this isn't going to work, but I'll lay here anyway. But nope, it really, really does.
Remind me, were you an in-person one or were you on a Zoom call?
Nope, I was on a Zoom call last year, maybe late summer, early fall.
Done it a few times.
Yeah.
You know what's really cool is when people will have similar experiences. Actually, I don't know if you were in the one where there were 2 lifetimes where people were baseball players.
Ooh.
Crazy. Like baseball players back in the 20s, 30s, maybe 40s. I was like, and they were like miles. I think one of them was like in Joplin or something like that, or Springfield maybe. Another one was in the Kansas City area. It was wild. And then,
Do you send us information to like prepare for this? Like have a place where you can lay down and have your phone or
Mhm.
tablet or computer
on
next to you?
Facebook. Yeah, it's on Facebook, and the Facebook event. So
Mhm.
it's good to have, just a place where you won't be disturbed. Keep the cats out of the room, keep the dogs out of the room, tell the kids, or maybe go someplace or send kids to grandma and just get in a place where you can be comfortable and not disturbed. And then have a pad of paper and something to write with nearby. Get yourself comfortable. And then for the future lives, sometimes people will see the same things in the future. It gets interesting.
It was interesting because I told you about the place where I lived in my neighborhood, if you want to call it that, in my door. And then you said, people tell me that a lot about the doors to their homes. And I was like, oh.
Isn't that funny? Well,
Yeah.
what gets interesting is that we have a past life, we have the current life, and we have the future life. So we see the trajectory that our soul is taking. And each lifetime, we might have a purpose or one or more purposes that is what we came to do, right?
Mhm.
But then we see over the arc, we can also have a soul's purpose. And that's where it gets interesting.
Mhm. Someone asked me this weekend, they feel like they remember a life that they've lived or bits of it, but that it happened in what we would call a future setting. And they wanted to know if they could have had a past life in a future world. And I said, well, I think that, time is a human construct, and you could have actually experienced a previous life on another plane or dimension that is more advanced than Earth or what we on here. And I said, but I would check it out.
No, you were absolutely right, Becky. Absolutely right.
I pay attention.
You do. Oh my gosh. Well, in 3rd grade, we're usually taught a timeline. Oh, sorry, that's my cat. We're taught a timeline, and on the left, it's past, and on the right is the future, and everything in between, and in order. It's not like that. It's like a big ball of yarn.
Yeah.
Doctor Who said it best. The David Tennant Doctor Who is my favorite. And he said,
Oh, yeah.
oh yeah, right? David Tennant all the way, number 10. The 10th Doctor. And he said, time is wibbly wobbly, timey-wimey stuff.
I love it.
So here's an analogy that I just love. So we've all got radios in the car, and there's different stations for the radio. All the stations are playing at the same time, but we can only listen to one at a time. So it's wherever we're tuned, that's what we're listening to. So WDAF is going on the same time that the buzz is going on, at the same time that the KY102 is going on. So all of these different stations are playing at the same time, but wherever we're focused is what we're listening to. So that's how I see this whole time thing. It's like all the times are going on at the same time, but wherever we're focused.
Concurrently.
Right. What was that?
I said concurrently. Not.
Yeah.
We don't have to use the word time, but we can say concurrent.
Yes. Right. At the same, they're playing. Well, and that gets interesting because sometimes we can have concurrent lifetimes going on.
Oh, no, that's interesting.
I like that concept. I would like to think that. Like maybe I go to sleep and go see my other family. See my other thing.
Exactly. So I've seen people in QHHT sessions where they're describing a scenario, a life, a neighborhood, a job in what we would consider the present. And then they come out of it and they're like, I don't understand how that happened. How that doesn't make sense. But no, it's like, think of like all of the old men in the park playing chess, and you can have more than one chess game going on at the same time. It's like you can have more than one life going on at the same time. It's crazy. So I think this is in the video that was on the list for you to see. I was talking about a client who came to me for a reading. This was before I was doing QHT. She came in for a reading, and I saw a past life for her that she was living on the prairie with a developmentally disabled adult son. And everybody was saying, you need to send this kid to some mental institution. You can't, he's different, he's weird, you can't raise him. And she's like, no, he's going to stay with me. And it was just the two of them. So then in the current lifetime, I found that the client is someone who does not have any children, and she worked with at the time, developmentally disabled adults, helping them figure out how to live on their own and get things figured out. So these two lifetimes were actually concurrent. The past one and the present one were actually concurrent. And so this woman, she told me that her name was Sarah, needed information for how to get this kid situated. And then in the present, Sally was getting information that Sarah could tap into unconsciously, subconsciously.
Oh, wow.
Right. And Sally in the present doesn't know what it's like to have a son or a child with these, being an adult or any age having developmental disabilities. And so was kind of subconsciously picking up the information from Sarah. Now here's the kicker. So I told the client, the name she really wants me to tell you is Sarah. And she goes, oh my God. She said, Sally is only my nickname. My real name is Sarah. And
Oh,
I was thinking that when you said, I'm like, well, those are related names even.
And she said that her name on her birth certificate is actually Sarah, but everybody calls her Sally. That's her nickname. So anything that you can imagine, and even things that you can't imagine, are absolutely 100% valid. So Jody, there's your validation. Anything that you can imagine, anything that you can't even imagine is just too weird. It can actually happen. Now, any questions about that? Mom, you have any questions? Okay, Ashley.
Hey, I just wanted to comment Jody talking about validation. I'm a believer, but I'm also kind of a healthy skepticist too. And I was wondering how the regression would work. What Christy led us through was just amazing. And I became so emotional. I totally lost my composure, and because of the feelings that I felt from a particular past life. And after I wrote a bunch of notes, and then I emailed Christy later. But I was so embarrassed. I literally had tears streaming down my face. And the more I went back and thought about it, I was like, because I'm like, oh, my imagination is vivid a lot of the times, but there's no way I could have imagined those emotions, felt them like I did. And the things that I saw and experienced in that life were things that I didn't have any exposure to before. So that was kind of my validation there. I was like, I couldn't have made that up because I didn't know about that stuff, or I'd never thought about it before that I know of. So yeah, it was amazing. And if I could be there Friday night, I would, but
that your experience was astounding, because I read through your email later and I was like, oh my gosh, it was rich.
yeah. And when I tell you the tears were uncontrollable, I mean, they were uncontrollable. I mean, what I felt was, I mean, it was out of this world.
Yeah. You can't make, okay. So, oh, and Jody said, I totally cried. Yes, I'm recalling you. I'm so sorry. My memory is shit. And sorry, I did not recall that. But yeah, so anyway, I had lost my thread. But okay, yes, I remember now. So sometimes people come out of it and they go, I think I made that all up. Did I make it up? And I'm like, could you have made it up? Is that something you would make up? Nobody has come out of it and said, oh, I made that all up. Right? Because, and let me tell you why that is. Because we're working in the right hemisphere of our brain, where memories, images, symbols, symbolism, storytelling is all in the right hemisphere of the brain. The left hemisphere of the brain tells us that we're making things up because we are human, because we are disconnected from source. The right side of the brain is connected to all of that. If you haven't watched it, watch the TED Talk from Jill Bolte Taylor, My Stroke of Insight. It's wonderful. But anyway,
What is it?
My Stroke of Insight. So when we are in hypnosis, we are accessing the right hemisphere of the brain that is connected to all of those things, which has the memories of this life and other lifetimes, which has the images that you're going to be using anyway, the images that we use in our dreams. All of that stuff is in the right hemisphere of the brain, which happens to be where we have imagination as well. So it feels like imagination because that's what we're most used to. So when we allow ourselves to just go with it, to dream, we allow ourselves to imagine, quite frankly, but you cannot make it up, but you can receive the imagination. And so it's interesting, it's different. Okay, so Jill Bolte Taylor was I guess she still is, she's still alive, a neuroscientist. She studies the brain and she studies strokes and she studies all of the anomalies that can happen with the brain. So she was getting ready for work one morning. I think she was on a treadmill at home and she had a stroke. And it was in the left hemisphere of her brain. And she at first didn't know what was going on. She just thought she was in la la land. She was confused. All of these things were going on. And so periodically, oh, are you leaving, Lelaine?
Yeah,
Oh,
I'm gonna go. Sorry to interrupt the story. Finish the story. Bye. I just didn't want to
right.
go away.
Right. Okay. Bye-bye. See you next time.
Okay.
So she has this stroke, and then every once in a while, she'd just kind of drift into her left brain and then drift over to her right brain. So when she was in her left brain, she's like, oh, I've got to get help. I need to dial a phone. How do I work a phone? What are numbers? And she would just kind of get into this kind of separate thing that keeps you separate. When she was like, when that part of her brain shut down and she was in the right side of her brain, she was out in the universe. She was connected to all that is. She felt expansive and joyous and everything. I am God. I am connected to the universe. It was wonderful. She did get help. She had brain surgery to remove the clot. And then she lived, of course, to tell about it in this TED Talk. And she talks about how the left side of the brain is meant to keep us separate. That is our ego side of the mind. The right side of the mind is connected to everything. And we get to choose where we're going to live. We get to choose how we want to present ourselves. We get to choose where we are and where we want to be. Do we want to be separate, focused on the ego, focused on just what we see around us? Or do we want to be connected to everything in that sea of non-ending love? We get to choose. She kind of breaks down at the end because it's so emotional, right? So anyway, that's kind of where, yeah, that's where the hypnosis happens. Right. So I'm kind of rambling at this point. What other questions? Comments, thoughts? Oh, I promised to, okay. Thoughts, comments, questions. Okay. I did promise to talk about karma.
Yeah.
Do we have any questions before we start about karma?
Well, I think I've come to understand it more as not a this sort of balancing act, like a tit for tat kind of thing, which is kind of, you know, the pop culture kind of thing of karma. It's not a vindictive thing so much. But I'm interested to understand about like karmic debt.
Sure.
That word, I've heard that phrase.
Right, right.
So that's
Basically,
something that I'm interested in.
right. Basically means that you're out of balance and that you need to recover. I think it's just another way to say balance.
Okay.
Honestly. So karma actually in Sanskrit just means balance. You know, it's not punishment, it's not reward. Anybody seen the show My Name is Earl?
Yes.
I love that show. It is hilarious.
Yes, it
And
is.
so Earl is this kind of scumbag type of person, petty crimes, can't hold a job, drugs and alcohol. We lost Ashley. Okay. Yeah. So he has this horrible, he's involved in this horrible accident, and he realized, well, karma, he found out about karma. He says, oh, karma struck, and karma is telling me that I'm a bad person and I need to change my ways. And so then he goes and he writes down every bad thing he did, and then he has to make amends to everybody. So every episode he's making different amends to somebody. It's hilarious. So that's kind of the extreme view that a lot of people have, that I do something bad, I have to make up for it, which is true. I mean, but it's more the experience. So remember I talked about how God had split apart to find out more of what its creation was, find out more about what it means to be source, et cetera, et cetera. So we all have to have all of these experiences. We have to have the experience of being killed, of being a killer, of being a thief, of being robbed, of being a cheater, of being cheated on, of being male, of being female, of being slave, being master, all of these different experiences, so we are more complete, right? To sign off all of the classes that we need to take to fulfill our major of being a human. And really that's where the balancing comes in. We think of, you know, bird eats ants. So then when the bird dies, then the ants eat the bird. So it's balanced. So if you do something bad to someone, then you get to have the experience of someone doing something bad to you. It's just that balance. So there is this wonderful, does that help? Does that answer your question? Okay.
Yeah.
So there's this wonderful book called The Little Soul in the Sun by Neil Donald Walsh. And it
Oh, yeah.
is part of Conversations with God, right? But now it's this beautiful little children's book. It's beautiful. So this little soul is up in heaven and says to God, I want to learn to be a forgiving soul. God says, are you sure? You're pretty perfect as you are. Yes, I want to learn to be a forgiving soul. And so God says, okay, well, you can arrange this. It's what you need to do. You need to find somebody to forgive, right? So the little soul says, okay, I need someone to help me. I can't do this by myself. I need to forgive somebody. And another little soul comes up and says, oh, I'll help you. I love you. You're my friend. I think you're awesome. Let me help you with this. So the little soul says, okay, here's the deal. We're going to go back down to earth. We're going to have physical lifetimes. You have to do something bad to me, and that way I can learn to forgive it, and then I can advance. So they make this agreement. But the little soul says, here's the deal. We also have to forget we ever had this conversation. Because if we remember that we had the conversation, then I won't be able to learn. What's the use of having of taking a test if you already know the answers? So we're going to have to forget we ever had this talk, and then we'll see how it goes. So anyway, they go back down, they have physical lifetimes. The second little soul does something dastardly to the first little soul. And the first little soul says, oh, great, I can learn to forgive, and did. So then when they get it back up to heaven, they take their costumes and their masks off. And they say, how did that go? And the little soul says, oh, I learned to forgive. Thank you so much. You really helped me. So we see that, and we wonder, why would somebody, like, why am I having to suffer this thing? How am I having to suffer abuse, trauma, sexual abuse, physical abuse, whatever it is? But when we realize that it's something we may have chosen to learn from, then that changes the perspective a little bit. It makes it easier to release it and forgive it so that we can check that box off and graduate, right? Well, we also realize that, well, maybe I did this to someone else in another lifetime, maybe, or something similar. So I need to have this experience. When we think about all of the negative things that happen in our lifetime, rather than a trauma or punishment or anything else, when we think of it as an experience and a lesson to learn from, something to have perspective on, then it does give us a different perspective.
Well, isn't it also, I mean, if there isn't bad, you don't even know what good is.
Yeah.
If you don't have the two opposites, or,
That's what the yin and yang are about, balance. Sometimes people who have really sad, really difficult, really, just challenging lives, they come in for QHHT, and then they see a lifetime where they're happy, where it's good, where they have love, they have a family, et cetera, et cetera. And then when we get to the portion of the session where I get to call in the higher self, I always ask, why did you show those lifetimes? What did they need to get out of it? Because, your higher self can choose any lifetime, but really they're going to choose the biggest bang for your buck, right? What do you still need to learn from? What are you still like dealing with that you didn't put to bed in another life? And so in those cases, the higher self will say, she just needed to see that she has been happy. She needed to see she'd had a good life before. This is just a different experience. So we can have that perspective. That's why I love this work, because we see our death in other lifetimes. We see our difficulties. I see war, famine, riots, torture, imprisonment, any kind of death you can imagine. I've seen it on my couch. So we get a broader view, we get a broader perspective, because we are so admired in what we're doing now in our life now. Everything around me now is the worst thing. I'm in debt. That's the worst thing. My marriage ended. That's the worst thing. I lost my job. That's the worst thing. But then we see other lifetimes and we know that I've been through worse. I've died dozens, if not hundreds of times. I've been through famine, I've been through war. And that we get a broader perspective about it. So for that, I love past life work, other lifetime work. Okay, so the past life, future life workshop, I love it because, like I said, we see three different lives. We see a past, we know the current, and then we see the future. So we can see the arc, and we can see some of the themes replaying. So, like, there was one of these events I did at a private residence. It was a book club. It was a Buddhism book club. So they knew all about past lives because they were reading about it in their book club, and they wanted to experience it for themselves. So they invited me to come out. So this one lady, she went through a lifetime where she was like this rich kind of Southern belle, rich debutante type of girl in a wealthy family. And she was trying to figure out who she was, what she could do, what she couldn't do in this kind of restrictive environment, what her place was in this society. And then we went to a future lifetime, and she was this artificial intelligence. She was in a machine, and her job was to serve humans, whatever they needed. And at the end of the day, she went to, because I guide you to go to where it is you live in the lifetime that we're viewing. She went to where she lived, which was this cubicle, this cubby, where she would recharge until she was needed the next time. And there was this huge bank of all these cubbies. And she had to find the one that was hers. She had to find her place. And so she came out of that, and I brought this to her attention. Like, in the past, you were trying to find your place. And in the future, you're trying to find your place. What's going on now? And she said that she's an artist, and she's trying to find her place in the art community. So 3 different ways to look at the same issue. So having this as a sole purpose of trying to find your place, but it's like looking at a piece of like a sculpture. It's like looking at a sculpture, and you look at it from the front, you look at it from the side, you look at it from the back, you look at it from the other side. You might get down and look up at it, and you're just examining the same thing from different angles and from different perspectives. Does that make sense? So we can sometimes have a theme across lifetimes, a purpose across lifetimes that we're examining in different ways. I had another client, this wasn't QHHT, she'd come to me for several different readings. And no, for one reading, but she wanted to know different past lives. So I looked at a few different lifetimes. So one lifetime, she was this child bride who was in India and who had been bought. Another lifetime, she was someone who had bought a sex slave or bought a child for that purpose. In this lifetime, she's like taking martial arts and wanting to learn self-defense because she wants to help women and children who'd been sex trafficked and help find them. So she was examining that theme from all these different perspectives. So that's where it gets interesting. Any comments, questions, thoughts about that?
No, I think that's all so interesting. I mean, I feel like, we're meant to know it because there's people like you trained to help us touch with those members and those events. So it's really, I mean, I'm gearing up for my own QHHT session, but yeah, I like hearing about these because it makes me think, what is the purpose? What do I really, need to find? But I know that I'm getting closer, but it's just so interesting to listen to your videos too, that you have on YouTube of the sessions.
Yeah.
Oh, fascinating, isn't it?
Mhm.
Fascinating. I'm having a QHHT chat Wednesday night. So we're just going to be talking about people's sessions. People who've not had sessions before can, hop on and ask questions. But people who've been through it can talk to each other and compare notes, etc. I don't know how it's going to go, but it should be fun. We did one kind of similar, like what do you need to know? It's kind of a panel discussion. I had certain questions, and if anybody was interested in doing a session but needed, what do they need to know? It was more geared for that. But then we just started talking about them, and when we stopped the recording, or we stopped the live feed, I asked them, hey, this was really kind of fun, and we had a lot to talk about. Do you want to do this again? And they all said, yeah, we would love to do this again. So we're doing it again. And
Is
anybody
that the one Wednesday?
Wednesday.
Okay.
Jody, no, not usually. I've been working with several people on multiple sessions. Usually QHHT is one and done, but sometimes people want to go back and explore a bit more, or it's like, now that I know what to do, I want to do it again. They don't always have a commonality. In fact, rarely do they have a commonality because there's so much to explore. We see maybe up to 3 different lifetimes in a session. And, there's still more to explore. You know what I mean? We could have many, many more lifetimes that we need to see for whatever reason. So, they're not, no, they're usually not. Now, you're talking about the past life aspect of it, or are you talking about the subconscious aspect of it?
Well, I just kind of was thinking about like the learnings or the teachings, like if I came back for another, what, you know what I mean? Because I had whatever, would I find a path in there somewhere, or would it be just segments of pieces of a puzzle that I still have to put together then? Or like, have you ever had somebody that, example me, I'm totally second guessing everything. That would be my luck. I'd have the same one twice, or really similar, or something like that. So
No, I've never encountered somebody having the same one twice. You can, if you do have questions, Jody, you can always bring them to ask your higher self.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that piece that's in there. Yes, I forgot about that part of the session.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, hey, last time I was here doing this, we covered this. What else do I need to know about it? Yeah, it's interesting. Okay, well, friends, there was some confusion over when we started. I think I need to do a much better job of keeping that on track. We had said 6, but I think since we had started at 7 before in other sessions and the last 2, we may have thought there was something better at 7.
Oh,
So
6:30. We did one too, so.
yeah, we did one.
Yeah.
Trying different times because not everybody can make it at the same time, or just to kind of broaden, like, same reason that having a workshop on one day and then try it again on a different day of the week, because not everybody can make it at the same time. But we should probably just pick is there a good time? Best times, would 6:30 be good for everyone? Would
We can
7
try it.
be good for everyone?
Yeah, I think 6:30 would be fine.
Okay, Tira, what time
Yes.
would be best? 6:30?
Mhm.
Pauline,
Yeah.
what time? 6:30? Jody, 6:30?
Yeah, 6:30.
Okay, cool. 6:30 it is. Now we need to pick a date. So, we've been doing these generally once a month. Today is the 12th of July. My August is going to be a little cray-cray because we're getting back from vacation on the 5th. Iris, my daughter, has her wisdom teeth out on the 6th, so she's probably going to be laid up for a little bit. Then the 11th, 12th, and 13th, we're going to St. Louis because I've got a client who's bringing me out there to work with his family. We're doing 3 different QHHT sessions, and we're going to turn it into a mini vacay. Then Iris starts high school on the 16th. It's going to be a little nutso. How about Wednesday? Oh, the first day of high school is actually, what? I thought it was the 16th. Huh. I thought the 16th was the first day of high school.
I'm on vacation for the, what is it? Not that, from the 6th through the 15th. I get back on the 5th, on the 14th.
Yeah, I'm gonna be gone that week and she's gonna be in St. Louis, so
Okay.
it would have to be the 3rd or 4th week.
Wow, okay, 3rd or 4th week, that's fine. That's probably better. That first week of high school, I'd like to be there for my kiddo and just make sure everything's going okay. So, back to the calendar here. Is there a certain night of the week that's better?
For me, it's usually Monday.
Monday? Tira?
Mondays work for me.
Becky?
Monday's fine.
Jody?
I'm good with Monday or Tuesday.
Okay, cool. Monday, the 23rd seems to be the consensus. Does that work?
Yep.
Perfect. Monday, the 23rd.
At 6:30.
30. You're on the same page. How about well, shoot. I thought about creating a Facebook event on the Radiate You group, but not everybody in that group is in this group.
Mm.
You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Yeah.
So it'll have to be by email, I think. Everybody put it on your calendars now. Oh, I'm gonna put it, I should put it on my calendar now too. Practice what you preach, Christi Ann. Okay, boot camp module. What are we up to? Module 4. So
Yeah.
the next module, I thought this module was really fun, but I think
Yeah.
the next module is going to be really fun too. Next module is what do we got? Oracle.
Yeah, and I'm excited about that.
Yeah.
Pendulums.
Perfect. Oracle cards and pendulum.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody got some?
Yep.
Got some
I
to
got
work
both.
with?
Yep.
All right. Cranky Frank, the book guy, was at the metaphysical fair. He had some
Oh.
great cards and some great pendulums.
And he was definitely cranky.
He is cranky. He's great though.
Yeah.
Cranky.
He knows a lot.
I'm so sorry I missed it. Darn it. But oh well.
Oh, man, everybody must have been ready for that fair because it was busy.
Yes.
Well, that's
Very
one
busy.
that wasn't. I remember that there were very few people a year ago.
Oh,
Well,
my
people
gosh,
are
it was good to see.
Vaccinated. They're ready to take their masks off. They were ready to rumble.
Yeah.
Touch things, go places.
Yeah, these
Yes.
they were ready.
See, now we can appreciate it because we've had the bad.
Yeah.
Yep, that's true.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I like that venue because it's still, I'm still distancing, y'all. I'm not ready to go into big crowds. I
Ah,
still wear my mask at the grocery store and Target and everything else like that. But this place, you could spread out a bit.
I really enjoy that. I mean, I think there were maybe some other advantages that the shrine
Shriners.
had, but there's really room to shop around the booths. Still people, move around. I like it a lot. So
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. So the shrine was great because we can have there's the kitchen there area, so we can
yeah,
have service. That was super handy. And then having 2 different floors, the workshop's completely separate and completely quiet. Air conditioning.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so anyway, the next module is the Oracle cards and pendulum. You definitely want to watch the videos all the way through if you can, because it'll just enhance what you're able to do with the cards and the pendulum. Okay.
Great.
And the homework, I think, pretty self-explanatory. Use your deck, your Oracle cards consistently every day for 2 weeks, and then the pendulum, use it consistently every day for 2 weeks, and then record your insights in your journal from both of those tools.
Okay.
Even if you're just doing like your Oracle cards, even if you're just pulling a card a day for yourself, that's cool too. Doesn't have to be, doing a complete spread and a complete reading for yourself. If you want to, do some readings or pull some cards or use a pendulum for other people, that's totally cool. You do you, boo. Just make note of it. See how it goes for you. Thank you, everybody. If you have any last questions before we sign off?
I want to make a comment.
Yeah.
All the questions that were asked in this session enhanced it for me. Great questions, great thoughts, and great explanations. So I appreciate all those questions.
Oh, yeah.
Usually if one person has it, other people are wondering.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I like that Socratic method.
What's up?
Fantastic. All right, friends. See you
Bye,
Monday,
everybody.
the 23rd at 6:30.
Okay.
No.
All right, sounds great.